The blood on Mira Fletcher's hands would not wash away, no matter how many times she scrubbed them in the cold stream water. And though she knew it was only the red clay stain from grinding healing roots, her people believed it marked her as cursed. She was 22 years old in the autumn of 1878, an Apache healer who had learned her craft from her grandmother. But after 3 patients died despite her best efforts, the whispers had grown too loud to ignore. Her own uncle had pointed at her during the last council meeting and declared that bad spirits followed wherever she walked, that death clung to her like smoke. So she had left, taking only what she could carry, wandering east through the New Mexico territory until exhaustion and hunger had brought her stumbling onto the lands of the Double L Ranch just outside Stillwater, Oklahoma. She collapsed near a fence line as the sun reached its peak, her vision swimming with dark spots, her canteen empty for 2 days now. The earth smelled of dust and dried grass, and she pressed her face against it, welcoming the coolness. Somewhere nearby, cattle lowed softly, and she heard the thunder of hoofbeats approaching fast. "Madam, madam, can you hear me?" The voice came from above, rough with concern and unmistakably male. Strong hands turned her over gently, and she found herself staring up into a face shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. Blue eyes, she noticed, bright as a summer sky, a jaw covered in several days of stubble, lines around his mouth that spoke of someone who smiled often, though he was not smiling now. "Water," she managed to whisper, her lips cracked and bleeding. He was already unscrewing his canteen, lifting her head carefully and tipping water into her mouth. She drank greedily, choking a little, and he pulled it back. "Slow now, easy does it. You will make yourself sick." When she had drunk her fill, he studied her face, taking in her buckskin dress, the medicine bag at her waist, the distinctive features that marked her heritage. "Apache?" he asked, and there was no hostility in his tone, only curiosity. She nodded weakly. "Can you stand?" "My ranch house is not far. You need food and rest." He helped her to her feet, and when her knees buckled, he caught her without hesitation. "Permission to carry you?" The question surprised her. Most white men would not have asked. "Yes," she said. He lifted her as though she weighed nothing, settling her against his chest, and whistled sharply. A beautiful Palomino horse trotted over, and somehow he managed to mount while still holding her, positioning her across his lap. "Name is Connor Lawson," he said as they started toward a cluster of buildings in the distance. "I own the Double L. You have a name." "Mira Fletcher," she said. The surname had been given by a missionary school she had briefly attended as a child, but it served well enough in dealings with white settlers. "I am a healer." "Well, Miss Fletcher, you look like you have been walking through hell itself. When did you last eat?" 3 days. Maybe 4. Time had blurred together. His jaw tightened. "We will fix that soon enough." The ranch house came into view, a solid 2-story structure built from good timber with a wide porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Corrals and outbuildings spread across the property, and she could see several men working with horses in the distance. Connor carried her straight to the house, kicking the door open with his boot. "Rosa," he called out. "Rosa, I need you." A plump Mexican woman with streaks of gray in her dark hair hurried from what looked like a kitchen, her eyes widening when she saw Mira. "Dios mío, what happened?" Found her collapsed by the south fence. "She needs food, water, and rest. Can you prepare something gentle?" "Her stomach will not handle anything heavy yet." Rosa nodded, already bustling into action. Connor carried Mira to a small room off the main parlor and laid her carefully on a bed with clean white sheets. The softness felt like luxury after weeks of sleeping on the ground. "Rosa will bring you broth and bread. You rest, and we will talk when you are stronger." He started to leave, then paused at the doorway, looking back at her with those striking blue eyes. "You are safe here, Miss Fletcher. Whatever you are running from, it does not matter on my land." She wanted to thank him, but exhaustion crashed over her like a wave, and she was asleep before he left the room. When she woke, golden afternoon light slanted through the window. A bowl of cooled broth sat on the bedside table along with soft bread and butter. Her stomach cramped with hunger and she ate slowly, forcing herself not to rush despite her body's desperate demands. Every bite felt like a blessing. Rosa appeared as she finished, carrying fresh water and clean clothes. "You are awake. Good. Mr. Connor, he was worried. How do you feel?" "Better, thank you." Mira gestured at the bowl. "Thank you for the food. Of course, of course." Rosa studied her with open curiosity but not unkindness. "You need a bath, I think. You are covered in dust. Come, I will heat water." An hour later, Mira sat in a copper tub in the kitchen, scrubbing away weeks of grime while Rosa kept discreet watch near the stove. The older woman had provided soap that smelled of lavender, and Mira could not remember the last time she had felt so clean. "Mr. Connor, he is a good man," Rosa said conversationally. "He found me 10 years ago when my husband died. I had nothing, no family here, no money. He gave me work, a home, fair wages. He does not see color or blood like some do. He sees only people." "That is rare," Mira said softly. "Very rare, especially now." Rosa handed her a towel. "The clothes on the chair, they belong to his sister. She moved east 2 years ago to marry. He said you should have them." The dress was simple blue calico, practical and well made. It fit reasonably well, though Mira was taller and leaner than Connor's sister must have been. Still, it felt strange to wear white woman's clothing after so long in her traditional dress. "He wants to speak with you if you feel strong enough," Rosa said. "He is in his office." Connor's office was a masculine room filled with ledgers and maps, a gun rack on one wall and a large desk covered in papers. He stood when she entered, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from his desk. "You look much improved, Miss Fletcher. Thanks to your kindness. I owe you a debt." He waved that away. "No debt, common decency, nothing more." He sat back in his chair, studying her. "You said you are a healer. What brought you out here alone?" She hesitated, then decided honesty was the least she could offer. "My people believe I bring bad spirits. 3 died under my care this year. A child with fever, an elder with a bad wound, a woman in childbirth. I tried everything I knew, but I could not save them." The whispers started, then accusations. "My uncle said death follows me, so I left before they forced me out." Connor was quiet for a long moment. "My mother died when I was 12, he said finally. "Fever took her. The doctor tried everything, but nothing worked. Sometimes people die, Miss Fletcher, no matter what we do. That does not make you cursed. It makes you human." "My people do not see it that way. Then they are letting fear rule them. Fear makes fools of good people." He leaned forward, his gaze intent. "You have a place here if you want it. Rosa is getting older, and while she will not admit it, the work is getting harder for her. The ranch could use another set of hands, and if you have healing knowledge, even better. I have 12 men working this ranch, and somebody is always getting kicked by a horse or cut on barbed wire or coming down with something. What do you say?" Mira stared at him. "You would let me stay?" "An Apache woman, an Apache healer," he corrected. "And yes, if you want to stay, you have a place here. Fair wages, room and board, same as I give everyone who works for me." "Why?" the question burst from her. "You do not know me. For all you know, my uncle was right." "Maybe I do bring bad spirits." Connor stood and walked to the window, looking out at his land. The setting sun painted everything gold and orange. "You know what I see when I look at you, Miss Fletcher? I see someone who cared enough to try to save people, even when it cost her everything." I see someone who learned a difficult skill and used it to help others. I see courage and determination." He turned back to face her. "And if you bring bad spirits, then they will find good spirits here to contend with. I built this ranch on the idea that every person deserves a chance. I am not about to abandon that principle now." Something in Mira's chest, something that had been wound tight for months, began to loosen. "I do not know what to say." "Say yes. Say you will stay at least for a while. Give yourself time to rest and heal. Then decide if you want to make it permanent." "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will stay." The smile that broke across his face transformed him, making him look younger, boyish almost. "Good, that is very good. You can start tomorrow. For tonight, just rest more. Rosa will bring you supper." As she stood to leave, he spoke again. "Miss Fletcher, thank you for trusting me enough to stay." She met his eyes, those impossibly blue eyes, and felt something shift between them, some recognition she could not name. "Thank you for giving me a reason to." The next morning, Mira woke before dawn, pulled by years of habit. She dressed in the borrowed calico and made her way to the kitchen, where Rosa was already starting breakfast. "You should rest more," Rosa chided, but she was smiling. "I have rested enough. Put me to work." They fell into an easy rhythm, Rosa directing while Mira helped prepare food for the ranch hands. When the men filed in for breakfast, most were polite if curious, offering nods and quiet greetings. A few stared openly, and one older man with a scarred face looked downright hostile, but no one said anything cruel. Connor arrived last, his hair damp from washing. "Morning, Rosa. Morning, Miss Fletcher. Please, just Mira is fine." "Then I am just Connor." He poured himself coffee, strong and black. "I thought I would show you around the property today if you are up to it. Help you get your bearings." They set out after breakfast, Connor on his palomino and Mira on a gentle mare named Daisy. The ranch sprawled across several hundred acres, Connor explained, running cattle and breeding horses. They had contracts with the army and several towns in the territory. "It is honest work," he said as they rode along a fence line. "Not easy, but honest, and I try to treat my men fairly. Some of them have been with me since I started this place 6 years ago." "You are young to have built all this," Mira observed. "He could not be more than 27 or 28. Started when I was 21. My father left me some money when he passed, and I had a dream. Wanted to build something good, something lasting." He patted his horse's neck. "Some people thought I was crazy trying to start a ranch this far out, but the land was affordable and I knew if I worked hard enough, I could make it thrive. You have succeeded, so far. Every day brings new challenges, though. Whether cattle rustlers, predators, disease, you cannot get comfortable in this life." He glanced at her. "What made you want to become a healer?" "My grandmother. She was the best healer in our band, knew every plant and root and their properties. She taught me from the time I could walk, said I had the gift, could see what was wrong with people." Mira's throat tightened with memory. "She died when I was 16, made me promise to use what she taught me to help our people." "And you did. Those 3 who died, it was not your fault, Mira." "You know that, right?" "In my head, yes. In my heart." She shook her head. "It is harder." They rode in companionable silence for a while, following a creek that wound through the property. The land here was beautiful in its own way, different from the harsh deserts and mountains she had known. Grasslands stretched to the horizon, interrupted by clusters of trees and the occasional rocky outcropping. "There," Connor said suddenly, pointing. A deer stood at the creek's edge, drinking. They watched until it bounded away, white tail flashing. Over the following weeks, Mira settled into ranch life. She helped Rosa with cooking and cleaning, but increasingly, Connor called on her healing knowledge. A ranch hand named Tom developed an infected cut on his arm, and she made a poultice from plants she found near the creek, drawing out the poison. Another man, Billy, came down with a fever, and she brewed teas that broke it within 2 days. Word spread, and soon men were coming to her with various ailments, some serious, some minor. Every time someone recovered, Mira felt a little more of her confidence return. Maybe she was not cursed. Maybe her uncle had been wrong. Connor watched her work with quiet approval, never interfering but always interested. He took to sitting with her in the evenings on the porch, both of them tired from the day's work, talking about everything and nothing. She learned that he loved this land with a fierce passion, that he had a younger sister named Catherine who wrote him long letters from Boston, that his favorite food was Rosa's apple pie, and that he dreamed of one day breeding horses fine enough to be known across the whole country. He learned that she missed her mother, who had died when Mira was 19, that she had once wanted to have children of her own but had given up that dream when the accusation started, that she found peace in the sound of running water, and that she had never tasted apple pie until Rosa made one specifically for her. "You have been here almost 2 months," Connor said one evening in early December. The air had turned cold and he had draped a blanket over her shoulders without asking. "Are you happy?" Mira considered the question carefully. "Yes," she said finally. "Happier than I have been in a long time. Your men have started to trust me. Rosa treats me like a daughter, and you—" She trailed off, suddenly uncertain. "And I what?" His voice was soft, encouraging. "You have been kinder to me than almost anyone in my life. I do not understand why." Connor shifted in his chair to face her more directly. At first, it was just the right thing to do, help someone in need. But now, he reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "Now it is because I care about you, Mira. More than I probably should, given you have only been here a short time." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Connor, I am Apache. You are white. People will talk. They will more than talk. Let them. I stopped living my life for other people's opinions a long time ago." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, sending warmth flooding through her. "But I will not push. If you do not feel the same, just say so and we will go back to how things were. I will not make things difficult for you." "I do feel the same," she admitted, the words tumbling out. "That is what frightens me. Every time someone gets close to me, something bad happens. What if my uncle was right? What if I do bring bad spirits? Then they will find good spirits here," Connor said firmly, repeating the words he had spoken that first day. "Mira, look at me." When she met his eyes, he continued, "I do not believe in curses. I believe in choices, in hard work, in treating people right. And I believe in what I feel when I am with you. That is real. Everything else is just fear talking." She wanted to believe him. God, how she wanted to believe him. "What if you are wrong? What if I am right?" He stood, pulling her gently to her feet, the blanket falling away. "What if we could have something real and good together? Would you really let fear steal that from both of us?" When he kissed her, soft and questioning, she kissed him back, pouring all her hope and fear and longing into it. His arms came around her, solid and warm, and for the first time in months, Mira felt truly safe. They kept their relationship quiet at first, not from shame but from a desire to protect something precious and new. Stolen kisses in the barn, hands held under the dinner table, long rides across the property where they could talk and laugh without an audience. Rosa knew, of course. Rosa seemed to know everything that happened on the ranch, but she only smiled and made sure to send them off with packed lunches whenever they rode out together. Winter settled over Oklahoma with unusual ferocity that year. Snow fell in thick blankets, and temperatures dropped lower than Connor could remember. The work became harder, requiring constant vigilance to keep the animals safe and healthy. Twice, Mira went out with the men in blizzard conditions to help with difficult births, the cattle struggling in the cold. Both times, through a combination of her knowledge and determination, mother and calf survived. "You are a miracle worker," Connor told her after the second successful birth, pulling her close as they stood in the barn, both covered in blood and birth fluids and sweat despite the freezing temperature. "Not a miracle. Just knowledge and luck." "I disagree. What you do, the way you stay calm and know exactly what is needed, that is a gift." He kissed her forehead. "My miracle worker." "You're impossible romantic," she countered, but she was smiling. Christmas came, and Connor gave her a beautiful turquoise necklace he had ordered from Santa Fe. "The color reminded me of your eyes," he said, fastening it around her neck. She had never owned anything so lovely. She gave him a medicine bag she had made herself, decorated with intricate beadwork. "For protection," she explained. "And to remind you that someone cares very much about you coming home safe every day." He wore it always, tucked inside his shirt against his heart. In late January, a group of Apache warriors appeared on the ranch's northern boundary. Mira saw them first from the kitchen window and felt her stomach drop. She recognized one of them, a young warrior named Gray Wolf who had once asked her father for permission to court her. Connor read the tension in her body immediately. "Stay inside," he said, reaching for his rifle. "No." She caught his arm. "I know them. This is not a raiding party. Look, they carry a white cloth." She was right. The lead warrior held a strip of white fabric tied to a lance. Connor lowered his rifle but kept it in hand as he and Mira walked out to meet them, several ranch hands falling in behind them, armed and wary. Gray Wolf's eyes widened when he saw Mira. "Mira Fletcher, we thought you lost." "I am not lost. I am here by choice. Why have you come?" He glanced at Connor and the armed men, clearly uneasy. "There is sickness in our camp, many children ill, 2 already dead. Our healer died in the autumn. We have no one else. Your grandmother's sister, Singing Bird, she said to look for you, said you might help despite how we treated you." Mira felt Connor tense beside her. She put a hand on his arm. "What sickness? Describe the symptoms." Gray Wolf did, his words painting a picture of what Mira suspected was influenza, possibly complicated by pneumonia. Bad but treatable if caught in time. "She is not going back there," Connor said flatly. "They threw her out, called her cursed." "I know what they did," Gray Wolf said, and there was shame in his voice. "I should have spoken up. I was a coward. But children are dying. Whatever we did to Mira, they do not deserve to suffer for it." Mira looked up at Connor. "He is right. The children are innocent, so are you. You do not owe these people anything." "Maybe not, but I owe it to myself, to prove that I am not what they said I was, that I can help, not harm." She touched his face gently. "I have to do this, Connor. For my own peace." She could see him struggling, wanting to protect her, wanting to keep her safe. Finally, he nodded. "Then I am coming with you and bringing armed men. If anyone tries to hurt you, they will answer to me." Gray Wolf started to protest, but Mira cut him off. "Those are our terms. You want my help, this is how it happens." The warrior looked at his companions, then nodded reluctantly. "Agreed." They left within the hour. Mira on Daisy with her medicine bag fully stocked, Connor beside her on his palomino, and 4 ranch hands, including the tough, quiet man named Jack who had fought in the war and had the scars to prove it. Gray Wolf and his warriors led them northwest, toward the winter camp where Mira's band was sheltering in the foothills. The ride took 2 days. At night, they camped separately but within sight of each other, the Apache warriors on one side of a clearing, Connor's group on the other. Mira could feel the tension crackling in the air like lightning before a storm. "This is a bad idea," Jack muttered as they ate dried beef and hardtack. "Apache cannot be trusted." "These Apache came asking for help under a white flag," Connor said sharply. "They are not the enemy today." "Today," Jack emphasized. "That is all we have, today." Connor's tone made it clear the discussion was over. Mira sat close to him, drawing comfort from his presence. "Thank you for coming with me, always. Wherever you go, I go. That is what love means." It was the first time either of them had spoken the word aloud. Mira felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you too, so much it terrifies me. Good terrified or bad terrified. Both." He kissed her softly, not caring that they had an audience on both sides of the clearing. "Then we will be terrified together." When they reached the Apache camp, Mira felt a complex tangle of emotions. This had been her home for 22 years, these people her family and friends, but they had also turned their backs on her when she needed them most. Her aunt's singing bird came forward, an elderly woman with a face like carved wood and eyes that missed nothing. "Mira, you came. The children need help. I came for them." "Fair enough." Singing bird glanced at Connor and his men. "Your white man and his warriors, they can camp at the edge. You may use my lodge for treating the sick." Connor looked like he wanted to argue, but Mira shook her head. "It is a fair compromise. I will be safe. I will check on you every few hours. I know you will." The situation was worse than Grey Wolf had described. 15 children were ill, ranging in age from infancy to early teens, along with several adults. The camp's only lodge large enough to house them all had become a makeshift hospital, the air thick with the smell of sickness and fear. Mira pushed up her sleeves and went to work. She started with assessment, checking each patient, asking questions, gauging who needed help most urgently. The youngest, a baby girl perhaps 6 months old, was struggling to breathe, her tiny chest heaving with each labored breath. Mira worked on her first, using steam infused with healing herbs to open her airways, massaging her chest gently, dribbling water mixed with honey into her mouth to keep her hydrated. Hours blurred together. Singing bird worked alongside her, taking direction without question, while other women came and went, bringing hot water, fresh cloths, whatever Mira needed. Connor appeared regularly as promised, bringing her food she barely had time to eat, water, encouragement. "You are exhausted," he said during one visit, noting the dark circles under her eyes. "You need rest. Later, when they are stable." She turned back to a boy of about 8 who was running a dangerous fever. "I need more willow bark tea and cold cloths." Connor fetched what she needed himself, refusing to leave until he saw her drink some water and eat a few bites of the food he had brought. "You cannot help them if you collapse." "I know. I am being careful." 3 days passed in this intensive work. Slowly, incredibly, the patients began to improve. Fevers broke, breathing eased, color returned to pale cheeks. The baby girl, who Mira had feared might not survive, began nursing again, much to her mother's tearful relief. On the 4th day, Mira emerged from the lodge to find the entire camp waiting. Her uncle, the one who had accused her, stood at the front, his face grave. "You saved them," he said simply. "All of them. Not one died." Mira swayed on her feet, exhausted beyond measure. "I did what any healer would do." "No, you did what our best healer would do, what your grandmother would have done." He stepped forward and she saw tears in his eyes. "I was wrong. I let fear and grief make me cruel. I accused you unjustly. Can you forgive me?" She wanted to hold on to her anger, to make him suffer as she had suffered. But looking at him, seeing the genuine remorse, she found she could not. "You are forgiven. Fear does make us cruel. I understand that now." He embraced her, and then others came forward, apologizing, thanking her, asking her to stay. Her aunt's singing bird stood to the side, watching with satisfaction. "You proved yourself," the old woman said when the crowd dispersed. You are a true healer, Mira. Your grandmother would be proud. I am not staying, Mira said gently. I have a new home now. A good one. Singing Bird looked past her to where Connor stood with his men watching over Mira with protective vigilance. The white rancher, you love him. I do. He loves you too. I see it in how he looks at you. Like you are the sun and moon together. The old woman smiled. Go then. Be happy. But know you are always welcome here. The spirits have shown your true heart. They left the next morning, loaded down with gifts from grateful parents, furs, beadwork, dried meat. Mira accepted them with grace, said her goodbyes, and turned Daisy toward the ranch without looking back. Connor rode beside her in silence for a while, then said, You were incredible. What you did back there, saving all those people, that was extraordinary. It was just healing. What I was trained to do. It was more than that. It was proof that you are not cursed, have never been cursed. You are blessed, Mira, with knowledge and skill and a good heart. I hope you can see that now. She did. For the first time since the deaths that had driven her from her home, she could see herself clearly. Not as cursed or touched by bad spirits, but as human. Fallible, yes, but also capable and skilled and worthy. I see it, she said softly. Thanks to you. You gave me a place where I could remember who I really am. You did that yourself, I just provided the opportunity. When they reached the ranch, Rosa ran out to meet them, gathering Mira into a fierce hug. Thank God, I worried the whole time. I am fine, more than fine. That night, as Mira soaked in a hot bath, washing away the grime of travel and the lingering sense of sickness, she reflected on how much her life had changed. 3 months ago, she had been dying in the desert, believing herself cursed and unwanted. Now she had a home, work she loved, friends who cared for her, and a man who loved her with his whole heart. Connor was waiting when she emerged, clean and dressed in her nightgown. He had built up the fire in her room against the winter cold, and the flickering light cast dancing shadows on the walls. I have been thinking, he said, suddenly nervous in a way she had never seen him. About what? He crossed to her, taking both her hands in his. About you, about us. About the future. Mira, these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. You make everything better just by being in it. You are strong and kind and brave, and I cannot imagine going through my days without you beside me. Her heart started to race. Connor. He dropped to one knee, still holding her hands, looking up at her with those impossibly blue eyes. Marry me. I know it will not be easy. People will talk, some will be cruel, but I do not care. I love you and I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He stood and swept her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that left her breathless. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, he produced a simple gold band from his pocket. It was my mother's, he said, sliding it onto her finger. My father gave it to me before he died, said I should give it to the woman I would love forever. I think he would have liked you very much. I wish I could have met him, met her too. They are watching, I think, and they approve. They married in early March, when the first wildflowers began pushing through the last of the snow. The ceremony took place on the ranch, with Rosa and the ranch hands as witnesses, and a Methodist circuit preacher officiating. Mira wore a white dress Rosa had sewn for her, and Connor wore his best suit, looking so handsome that Mira could hardly breathe. Not everyone approved. Several of Connor's business associates in town made their displeasure known, and ugly letters arrived from strangers who had heard about the marriage. But Connor threw the letters in the fire and continued conducting business with his usual honesty and fairness. And gradually, most people accepted that Connor Lawson had married an Apache woman, and nothing would change that fact. Singing Bird and Gray Wolf came to visit that spring, bringing wedding gifts and blessings. Your grandmother's spirit is happy, Singing Bird told Mira. She whispers to me in dreams, says you found your path. Tell her I think of her every day. She knows. The spirits always know. Mira's life fell into a new rhythm. She continued her healing work, her reputation spreading until people came from miles around seeking her help. Connor supported her completely, even building her a dedicated space for treating patients, a small cabin near the main house stocked with all the supplies she needed. She saved lives, eased suffering, and with each successful treatment, her confidence grew stronger. In late summer, she realized she was pregnant. The discovery filled her with equal parts joy and terror. She had helped countless women through childbirth, but doing it herself felt different, more vulnerable. Connor was overjoyed when she told him, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around despite her laughing protests. We are going to be parents, a father and mother. I can hardly believe it. Believe it. This child is very real and making me sick every morning to prove it. He became impossibly protective, trying to limit her work, fussing over her constantly until she finally had to sit him down and explain that pregnancy was not an illness. I know that. I just want to keep you safe, both of you. We are safe. But I need to keep working, keep moving. It is good for the baby and good for me. She took his hand and placed it on her still flat belly. Trust me. I am a healer, remember? The best healer, he agreed, kissing her softly. Their son was born in early April of 1880, arriving during a spring thunderstorm that shook the house with booming thunder. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Mira feared something was wrong, but Rosa stayed with her throughout, calm and encouraging, and finally, wonderfully, a baby's cry filled the room. Connor, who had been pacing the parlor below, ran upstairs to find Mira exhausted but glowing, holding a red-faced, squalling infant with a shock of dark hair. A boy, she said, her voice hoarse from effort. We have a son. He sat carefully on the bed beside her, staring at the baby with wonder. He is perfect. You are perfect. I cannot believe this is real. What should we name him? They had discussed possibilities but never settled on anything definite. Connor thought for a moment, watching his son's tiny fist wave in the air. How about Matthew? It means gift of God. And he certainly feels like a gift. Matthew Fletcher Lawson, Mira said, testing the name. I like it. Hello, Matthew. Welcome to the world, little one. The baby settled at the sound of her voice, his eyes trying to focus on her face. Connor touched one miniature hand with his finger, and Matthew's fist closed around it with surprising strength. He is strong, Connor said with paternal pride. He will need to be. The world is not kind to those who are different. Then we will teach him to be strong and kind both. To stand up for what is right, no matter what others think. Just like his mother. Matthew thrived, growing into a healthy, active baby who rarely cried and seemed endlessly curious about everything around him. Mira took him with her sometimes when she worked, carrying him in a cradle board she made in the traditional Apache style. Patients cooed over him, and he seemed to enjoy the attention. Connor proved to be a devoted father, coming in from the fields to spend time with his son, talking to him constantly, even though Matthew was too young to understand. He needs to know our voices, Connor explained when Rosa teased him about having full conversations with an infant. He needs to know he is loved. When Matthew was 6 months old, Singing Bird visited again, this time bringing Mira's mother's sister and several other relatives. They blessed the baby in the traditional way, giving him an Apache name, Little Bear, to go alongside his English one. He is of two worlds, Singing Bird said. He should have a name in both. Mira held her son close, grateful beyond measure that her family was choosing to embrace him rather than reject him. "Thank you for accepting him, for accepting us. You are family, blood calls to blood." And Connor Lawson proved himself a good man. He protects you, provides for you, loves you. What more could we want? That evening, as Mira nursed Matthew while Connor did paperwork at his desk, she reflected on how completely her life had transformed. 2 years ago, she had been alone, afraid, convinced she was cursed. Now she had a husband who loved her unconditionally, a beautiful son, a thriving practice as a healer, respect from two communities that should have been enemies, and a home that felt like sanctuary. "What are you thinking about?" Connor asked, looking up from his ledgers. "How happy I am, how blessed. I never thought I could have this." He came to sit beside her, wrapping his arm around her shoulders, watching Matthew nurse with the same wonder he had shown since the boy's birth. "I never thought I could have this either. But here we are. Here we are," she echoed. Life continued its steady rhythm through the seasons. Matthew grew into a curious toddler who loved horses and followed his father everywhere. Connor taught him to ride before he could properly walk, setting him on a gentle mare and leading her around the corral while Matthew shrieked with laughter. Mira's practice expanded further. She began training 2 young Apache women who wanted to learn healing, passing on her grandmother's knowledge as it had been passed to her. She also taught some basic medical skills to Rosa and several ranch hands, believing that everyone should know how to treat common injuries and illnesses. Connor's ranch continued to prosper. He bought additional land, increasing his herds, and his horses developed a reputation for quality across the territory. He hired more men, including several Apache who had fallen on hard times, continuing his policy of judging people by their character rather than their heritage. When Matthew was 3, Mira discovered she was pregnant again. This time she felt less afraid, more confident in her body's ability to do what was needed. Connor was thrilled, hoping for a daughter this time, he admitted. Their daughter arrived in October of 1883, an easier birth than Matthew's had been. She had her father's blue eyes and her mother's dark hair, a perfect blend of both parents. They named her Sarah, after Connor's mother, and gave her the Apache name Morning Sky. Matthew was fascinated by his little sister, wanting to hold her constantly, bringing her his favorite toys, singing to her in a sweet, off-key voice that made both Mira and Connor smile. "He will be a good big brother," Mira predicted. "He already is," Connor agreed. As the children grew, so did the ranch and Mira's reputation. She was called to help during an epidemic of scarlet fever that swept through Stillwater, working alongside the town doctor and saving many lives. The doctor, an older man named Charles Hoffman who had initially been skeptical of her methods, became one of her strongest advocates. "You have knowledge that medical school never taught me," he told her after they successfully treated a difficult case together. "We should work together more often." They did, forming a partnership that benefited the entire region. Dr. Hoffman handled surgery and more severe medical cases, while Mira specialized in preventative care, herbal treatments, and women's health. Together, they made a formidable team. Connor supported everything she did, proud of her accomplishments, never once trying to hold her back or limit her ambitions. He had become an important figure in the territory, respected by ranchers and townspeople alike, known for his fairness and integrity. When Oklahoma began moving toward statehood in the late 1880s, Connor was asked to serve on various committees, helping to shape the future government. "I want to make sure the new laws protect everyone," he told Mira. "Not just white settlers, but Apache, Creek, Cherokee, everyone who calls this land home. I have seen too much injustice to stay silent." He fought hard for fair treatment of native peoples, often finding himself at odds with more prejudiced committee members. But his reputation and success gave him influence, and he used it wisely. Several laws that would have stripped tribal lands or rights were defeated partly due to his efforts. Matthew grew into a thoughtful, intelligent boy who loved learning and showed an early aptitude for medicine. He often helped his mother with her work, watching intently as she treated patients, asking endless questions. "I want to be a healer like you," he announced when he was 8. "Then I will teach you everything I know," Mira promised. Sarah was more adventurous, more like her father in temperament. She learned to ride almost as early as Matthew had, and by 5, she was racing her pony around the corral, whooping with joy. She also showed a gift with animals, able to gentle even the most nervous horses with patience and soft words. "She is going to be a rancher," Connor said, watching her work with a skittish colt. "She has the touch." "She can be anything she wants," Mira said firmly. "We will make sure both our children have choices." In 1890, tragedy struck the region in the form of a harsh winter followed by a late spring drought. Cattle died by the hundreds, and many ranchers faced ruin. Connor's careful management and larger reserves helped the Double L survive, but he saw neighbors losing everything. "We need to help," he told Mira. "We have enough. Others do not." They organized relief efforts, providing food, supplies, and even cattle to struggling families. Connor extended interest-free loans to several ranchers, asking only that they repay him when they could. Some criticized him for being soft, but Mira knew the truth. He was being human, remembering that success meant nothing if you could not help others in their time of need. That winter was hard on everyone, but the Lawson family emerged stronger for it. They had proved they could weather difficult times without compromising their principles, and the community did not forget their generosity. As Oklahoma moved closer to statehood, Connor became increasingly involved in territorial politics. He used his position to continue advocating for fair treatment of all peoples, making both allies and enemies in the process. There were threats, angry letters, even one incident where someone took shots at him while he rode the fence line. Though the bullets went wide and the shooter was never caught, Mira worried constantly. "Maybe you should step back. Focus on the ranch and family. Let others fight these battles." "I cannot. If good people stay silent, evil people win. I have to do what I can while I can." He held her close, feeling her fear. "But I will be careful, I promise. I have too much to live for to be reckless." He kept his promise, hiring extra security, varying his routes and schedules, staying vigilant. The attacks stopped, though the political battles continued. In 1893, Matthew announced he wanted to attend medical school back east. He was 16, bright and determined, and both Mira and Connor knew they should support his ambitions. Still, the thought of their son so far away was painful. "We will visit," Connor assured Mira as they watched Matthew pack, "and he will come home for summers. It is not forever." "I know. I am proud of him. I just will miss him terribly." Matthew hugged them both before climbing into the wagon that would take him to the train station. "I will make you proud," he promised. "I will be the best doctor I can be, and then I will come home and help people here." "You already make us proud," Mira said, tears streaming down her face. "Every single day." Sarah, now 10, threw her arms around her brother. "Do not forget us. Never. You are my favorite sister after all." "I am your only sister," she pointed out, "which makes you my favorite by default." He ruffled her hair affectionately. "Take care of mother and father for me." After he left, the house felt emptier. But letters arrived regularly, full of Matthew's excitement about his studies, his new experiences, the things he was learning. He sent drawings and diagrams. asking his mother questions about herbal remedies and traditional healing methods, fascinated by how different traditions approached medicine. Sarah thrived in his absence, taking on more responsibility around the ranch. At 13, she could rope and brand cattle alongside the men, and Connor began teaching her the business side of ranching, showing her the ledgers and contracts, explaining how everything worked. She absorbed it all with the same fierce focus she brought to everything. "She is going to run this place someday," Connor said with certainty. "She has the skill and the passion for it. What about Matthew? Should he not inherit? The ranch should go to whoever will love it and care for it best. Matthew will have his medical practice. Sarah will have the double L." "That seems fair to me," he paused. "Unless you disagree." "No, I think you are right. Sarah belongs to this land in a way Matthew never did." In 1896, Oklahoma achieved statehood and Connor was invited to the ceremony. He brought Mira, Sarah, and Matthew, who had come home for the summer, wanting them all to witness this historic moment. As the new state flag was raised, Connor took Mira's hand. "We helped build this," he said softly. "Not just us, but thousands of people working together. I hope it becomes everything we dreamed." "It will, because good people will fight to make it so." That summer, Matthew met a young woman named Emily, a teacher's daughter from Stillwater with a quick laugh and intelligent eyes. Mira watched them fall in love with the same swift certainty she and Connor had experienced, and when Matthew asked for their blessing to marry Emily, they gave it gladly. The wedding was held at the ranch in late August, a joyous celebration that brought together people from across the region. Apache and white settlers mingled freely, sharing food and stories, dancing to a combination of fiddle music and traditional drums. It was the kind of event Connor had dreamed of when he first started the ranch, people coming together without regard for differences. "Your mother would have loved this," Mira told him as they watched the festivities. "She would have loved you," he replied, "would have loved all of this, the family we built, the life we have created. Do you have any regrets? Marrying me, I mean, it has not been easy." Connor turned to face her fully, his blue eyes intense. "Not one single regret. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Mira. You and our children, this life we have built together. I would not change a moment of it." She kissed him, this man who had saved her life in more ways than one, who had given her back her confidence and her purpose, who had loved her without reservation or condition. "I love you, Connor Lawson, today and always." "Today and always," he echoed. Matthew and Emily settled in Stillwater, where Matthew opened his medical practice. He worked closely with his mother, combining traditional medicine with the healing knowledge she had taught him, earning respect from both white and native communities. Within a few years, they had 2 children of their own, a daughter named Claire and a son named Thomas. Sarah married at 21, choosing a quiet ranch hand named Daniel who had worked the double L for 5 years. Connor approved wholeheartedly. Daniel was hardworking, honest, and clearly adored Sarah. They held a simple ceremony and moved into a house Connor built for them on the eastern edge of the ranch property. As Connor and Mira moved into their 50s, they gradually handed more responsibility to Sarah and Daniel. Connor still consulted on major decisions, but increasingly, the daily operations fell to the younger generation. He seemed content with this, spending more time with Mira, taking long rides across land they both loved, visiting their grandchildren, and working on various civic projects. Mira continued her healing work, though she also began focusing more on teaching, wanting to ensure her knowledge passed to future generations. She trained a dozen apprentices over the years, both Apache and white, insisting that healing knowledge belonged to everyone. In 1905, Connor fell ill with pneumonia during a particularly harsh winter. For the first time in their marriage, Mira's skills were tested against something threatening the person she loved most. She used every remedy she knew, stayed by his side for days, bargaining with God and the spirits both to let him live. "You cannot leave me," she whispered during the worst of it, when his fever spiked dangerously high. "You promised we would grow old together." You do not break promises, Connor Lawson. Whether it was her healing skills, divine intervention, or sheer stubbornness on Connor's part, he pulled through. The recovery was slow, but eventually he regained his strength. The illness left him more careful about his health, though, and slightly less invincible than before. "I am not ready to leave you yet," he told Mira as he convalesced. "We still have too much life left to live." They had 20 more years together. Years filled with grandchildren and great-grandchildren, watching the ranch continue to prosper, seeing Oklahoma grow and develop, and witnessing the world change in ways both wonderful and terrible. Through it all, they faced everything together, their love the foundation on which everything else was built. Connor died peacefully in his sleep in 1925 at the age of 74. He simply did not wake up one morning, his hand still holding Mira's, a slight smile on his weathered face. The doctor said his heart had stopped, worn out after a long, full life. Mira was devastated but also grateful. They had been married 46 years, loved each other every single day, built a legacy that would outlast them both. She had been blessed beyond measure, had known a love most people could only dream about. "Thank you," she whispered to his still form. "Thank you for seeing me when others looked away. Thank you for believing in me when I could not believe in myself. Thank you for giving me this beautiful life. I will love you until I draw my last breath and beyond." She lived another 5 years, continuing to practice healing almost until the end, teaching, advising, sharing her knowledge. She spent time with her children and grandchildren, telling them stories of their grandfather, making sure they understood the kind of man he had been. When Mira died in 1930, she was 74 years old, surrounded by family. Her last words were about Connor, saying she could see him waiting for her, that he was smiling that smile she had loved so much. They buried her next to him on a hill overlooking the ranch, where wildflowers bloomed every spring and the wind whispered through the grass like songs. Sarah and her family continued running the Double L, maintaining the principles Connor had established, treating all people fairly, building on the legacy of love and acceptance her parents had created. Matthew's descendants became doctors and healers, blending traditional and modern medicine just as their ancestor had. The healing techniques Mira had taught were documented and passed down, her knowledge becoming part of medical history in the region. The story of Connor and Mira became legend in Stillwater and beyond. People told it to their children and grandchildren. The tale of the rancher who had found a dying Apache healer and offered her sanctuary, who had loved her when the world said he should not, who had built a life based on the simple principle that good spirits could overcome bad, that love and acceptance could triumph over fear and hatred. On the hill where they were buried, a marker was placed years later by their great-grandchildren. It reads simply, "Connor Lawson and Mira Fletcher Lawson. He said bad spirits would find good spirits here. They found love instead." And every spring, without fail, wildflowers bloomed around their graves, blue as Connor's eyes and purple as the hills Mira had loved, twining together as the two of them had twined together in life, inseparable, eternal. A testament to the power of love to overcome any obstacle, to bridge any divide, to create something beautiful and lasting in a harsh and unforgiving world.